Hello guys, my name is Anna Huchko. I'm a professional classical pianist and this is my YouTube channel where I not only upload the videos of myself playing but also talk about classical music and about my musical life. So today I would like to give you some practicing tips. I've been not only playing piano for around 24 years, but also I have 10 years teaching experience. So I had lots and lots of students in my life of completely different levels, starting from kids and adults, beginners, but also professional students. And there are tips that hopefully will be helpful for everybody. It doesn't matter if you are a beginner, if you are an advanced student, or maybe semi-professional, or even a very young professional pianist. Of course, also if you are a professional pianist, but I guess you just won't watch this video and you won't need these tips if you are a professional pianist. But anyways, let's get started. And the first tip is actually it's not really about practicing, but it's of course also very important for your practice, and this is your teacher. Of course, you always need a good teacher if you want to improve your playing, your understanding of music, your skills. And it really doesn't matter if you are a beginner or if you're an advanced student. I think you always need a good teacher, just a good mentor that will always motivate you and just tell you the things that you didn't know before. I think it's very important that somebody listens to you and controls everything what happens with your hands and with your brain and with your hearing, just in general with your playing. And I think the sign of that you have a good teacher is when you come home after your lesson, you always know what you should work on. So the second tip is try to play on a real acoustic piano. I know that nowadays the technologies are amazing, they're much better than they were 20 years ago, and basically 90% of students practice on an electronic piano, or at least have it at home, just for learning new things or whatever. But even if you're a beginner and even if you don't have a possibility to have an acoustic instrument at home, find somewhere a possibility to practice on an acoustic, on a real piano, at least from time to time. It doesn't have to be a grand piano, it can also be an upright piano, but I find this is one of the most important things really, to play at least from time to time on a real piano, because only then you will learn a proper technique, you'll really listen to yourself. Yes, so real piano. The third tip, try to practice as often as possible. I always tell it to my own students. It's not so important that you spend, for example, a lot of time one day in a week practicing, as many people do. For example, you take, 3-4 hours on Sunday to practice and you don't practice any other days. I think it's much more important that, for example, you have 30 minutes, but every day. This is how our brain learns. Everything what you will learn on Sunday, let's say in these 3-4 hours, you will completely forget during the week if you don't spend any time. You always need to repeat and to refresh the things. And you should also understand that it's not only for the brain, it's also for the fingers. Fingers are made of muscles, and you of course always need to train them, so to say. So just try to practice as often as possible, even if it's a very short time every day. It will make a big difference. Okay, the next practicing tip is always start your practicing day or your practicing time with the most difficult thing. And it doesn't matter if you have a very big program, if you have a lot of pieces, or if you just practice one piece. Just always start with the most difficult part in this piece, or start with the most difficult piece, because it's just simply how our brain works. When it's the beginning of your practice, you can learn things faster and easier, and of course while you get tired, it will be just more difficult, and in the end you can just repeat the pieces that you know already better. The next thing that is very important for me, and that I do with all of my students, doesn't matter if they really want to achieve a good level or if they just want to play something for themselves, and I also have done this a lot in my past, and this is practicing scales, like scales and etudes in general. But I would say if you don't have time to play a lot of etudes, just play scales. It will take probably like 5 minutes of your practicing time, maybe 10 minutes, but it will make a huge difference in some time, let's say maybe in a year, maybe in 2 years. But without scales, without etudes, you cannot really reach the technical level that you will need to play really interesting and nice pieces. So yeah, practicing scales is very important. Okay, the next tip is to record yourself. I think that recording yourself and just using all the technological possibilities that we have nowadays is just really helpful. And especially not only record yourself just an audio, but also make a video of yourself playing, not even just of your hands, but of your whole body. You will notice immediately your mistakes, or just what you can do better, how you sit, if you move maybe too much, if your body is not relaxed enough, how your hands look like, and of course always listen to what you play. Always try to hear what you can do better. Basically, if you've never recorded yourself, first time you do it, it will be a big shock for you, but later you will just get used to it, and it will be really helpful, believe me. So record yourself. The next tip that is rather helpful for the beginners, for the advanced students, I think all the beginner students always underestimate how important is it just to listen to a lot of classical music if you want to play classical pieces. Just try to listen every day something. Try always to find more and more recordings of the piece that you learn right now, just from the different pianists. You will learn a lot just from hearing. You will learn slowly how to compare different interpretations. Basically, you will of course also learn that there are different interpretations of one piece that you can play really differently, and you will see how the pianists played 80 years ago and how the modern pianists are playing right now. This is really important, and it will also not take a lot of your time. Just try to listen to something before you start practicing, just maybe 5-10 minutes. We have so many possibilities these days, and all the recordings in the world are open. You can use YouTube, Spotify. And when you're practicing one piece from one composer, it's very important that you also know other pieces of this composer, and that you understand the style of this composer in total. Yeah, I think this is very important, and this is really something that people, the beginners, always underestimate, so don't forget about it. The next tip is try to perform as often as possible. And I know that for many people this is an absolute no-go to perform for other people, even for friends, but I think this is really something very important, because music is beautiful, music is wonderful, and I think just to play for yourself, it's very unfair. You should share your music with your friends, with your family. Just organize something, and also it will have a very big impact on your playing, on your practicing, because only when you perform for other people, being a little bit stressed, you will hear how you actually know the piece. This is something that all the professional musicians know, that when you play on the stage, the piece just changes completely. You can practice one way, but when you go to the stage, it will just always sound very, very different, and you will learn a lot from performing to other people. Of course, this is much easier if you are somewhere in a music school, maybe private school. If you just take private lessons, it can be much more difficult, but just maybe ask your teacher to organize a nice house concert for all the students. And you can also listen to other people. This is also, I think, very nice and helpful, you know. If you just don't stress yourself about it, it will be really helpful for you if you play for other people. It doesn't have to be perfect, but this is really a way of learning. I think it's as important as practicing for yourself. The tip number 9 may seem to you a little bit strange, but this is something that I explored for myself just a few years ago. So especially if you have to practice already longer time, let's say 1 hour and more, you will already know the situation when you practice, and there are a lot of thoughts going on in your mind. Like, for example, I have to do this, I have to write this email, I have to go somewhere to bring this, and so on. A lot of things, even like simple things like I have to clean my bathroom today. I think we all experience something like this during our practicing. So what I started doing, I just take a simple piece of paper, I put it next to my score, and when something comes to my mind, I just try to write it down immediately. As soon as you write it down, it will be out of your head. And in the end of your practicing, you will have a list of the things that you need to do. Maybe you can do it in the evening, or just write down somewhere to a proper notebook or to-do list. But you don't have, you know, while you are practicing, you don't have to keep everything in your head, and also you don't need to go immediately to do something like to write an important email that you may forget about in a few minutes. You will just have a list of the things that you need to do. This was really, really helpful for me, and I do it almost every day. Also, it helps not to distract yourself from practicing. Yeah, so there were 9 tips how to practice, and the last tip is just stop watching YouTube videos. Stop watching this video and go and practice, and then you will succeed. So see you next time, guys. Bye.